course, if Ace is responsible for the anomaly, that could also imply the involvement of the Doctor.
No, this isn't his style.
But given his reputation...
He is a maverick, Taurus, not a psychopath.
But it wouldn't be the first time he's acted so recklessly. Not with the hand of Omega's involved. Snipers! Down, mark!
Some civilizations consider Omega to be the last, or in some cultures the end. And whilst this is now an end for me, it is also a new beginning. Omega shall be freed!
Hello and welcome YouTubers and Doctor Who fanatics to another Big Finish audio review for December scheduling, and today I'll be taking a look at Gallifrey Intervention Earth, the most recent Gallifrey release from the range, starring Juliet Landau playing Romana and Sophie Aldred as Ace. So if you want to go straight to my review of Gallifrey Intervention Earth and want to see how it's showcased, then there is the time to the review. If you have or haven't skipped, then let's begin the video. So for the front cover of Gallifrey Intervention Earth, we have Omega right by there, standing very powerful, with Earth and the Black Hole, with Juliet Landau playing as Romana, Narvin and Ace. Then we have from the worlds of Doctor Who and the Gallifrey banner by here, showcasing Gallifrey Intervention Earth text by there, and a nice beautiful landscape, one of Tom Webster's best covers. And with the standard stuff like the Big Finish logo, showcasing us the main cast, and by here we have Gallifrey Intervention Earth. So here we have the spine of the release, and we have it up close with the seal of Rassilon, Gallifrey Intervention Earth, then the number 7 and the Big Finish logo. For the back of Gallifrey Intervention Earth, it is written by Scott Handcock and David Llewellyn, also directed by Scott Handcock, and we have the scenario on the release, and then the cast and who plays the characters. The running time is 107 minutes approx. We have the seal of Rassilon by there, and it also comes with music score on both the discs. And when we open it up, we are presented with the leaflet and the 2 discs. This release is comprised of 2 discs, and then we have an advertisement for a companion chronicle, Luna Romana. And then we have the leaflet itself with various behind the scenes pictures, and then photo credits by there, and then production credits. So that was Gallifrey Intervention Earth Showcase. Now to my review of the story. Now to my review of Gallifrey Intervention Earth, and Gallifrey is one of the most popular Big Finish spin-offs and ranges out there, and I've been dying to get into this range. I've had this release for quite a while, I just haven't listened to it. But yeah, I have finally listened to this story. It's just been in my collection forever on the shelf. I've never had the urge to get it off the shelf and listen to it. Yeah, this would be a good starting point for the Gallifrey series, as it's a very accessible and easy story to listen to, and structured with format and layout very different from the previous releases, as those releases just played the full 60 minutes, the full audio with no breaks, whereas this one, it will be a structure that you're familiar with, just like the monthly range audios. It's a 4-part story this is, and you have time to reflect on the story when each part concludes. So that was a very good format and layout that they did, because it's more fast paced, and you don't have to take in the entire story from start to finish. You can have breaks with it. So yeah, I love the structure and the format with this one. It's more easier for people to listen to and newcomers. And yeah, I think this is a great starting point for if you want to get into the Gallifrey series, as you don't need any back history or knowledge on the range. You can just go straight into it, you don't have to worry about anything at all. Now with the opening scenario of the story, how it sets up everything with Ace, Romana, etc, etc. This is Ace after travelling with the Doctor, and Ace is a part of the Time Lord High Society, and is a part of the CIA, which is essentially what our CIA is like, but in Gallifrey, which stands for the Celestial Intervention Agency. And Ace is an operative for the CIA doing various missions for the Time Lords. And in this story she was joined up with another Time Lord character known as Rex, and I'll discuss more about his character later on. And yeah, these two are on a mission for the hand of Omega, which was stolen and taken from Gallifrey. And that's how those two start off with that part of the story. It's a very interesting part of the story, that is. And then we have the other strand of the story, which continues over at Gallifrey with Romana. And as you can see, this is a different regeneration of Romana, as it's played by Juliet Landau. And from what you can tell from the scenario of the story, her position as president is threatened, with Time Lords and some other characters against her. So you really have two strands of this story, which then goes right into the centre one, with the return of Omega, as you can see, is right on the cover. So yeah, it opens up the main plot of the story, like a political conspiracy on Gallifrey, with Omega returning. So yeah, that's the opening scenario, how this story sets up with two of the strands of the stories, and then the main big focusing plot. Now I'll begin my in-depth review, then characters and performances, then my final opinions, then I'll rate the story, then I'll close off the video. So let's begin the review. First things first, I'm going to talk about the opening title sequences to all the parts. And I quite like these, as each part is a different character. Part 1 being Ace with her life on Gallifrey, as she's quite a different person when she's been on Gallifrey. The second part is with Romana, Juliet Landau. Part 3 is with Narvin's intro. And yeah, he's a big character of the Gallifrey series. I'm really happy to experience more of Narvin, as he's a really interesting, overall, just a fantastic character. And then part 4 we have the brilliant Stephen Thorne Omega. So yeah, part 1 begins with Ace in the story on a mission sent by the Time Lords, with a quite nice introduction scene of her fleeing away from predators. And when she enters her TARDIS, a unknown Time Lord is inside called Rex. And yeah, Ace is pretty good in this story. However, I wasn't really a big fan of how Ace was characterised. More of a immature side, and I'm not really a big fan of Ace's character like that. I love her side when she's more mature, more adult and independent, but here she can annoy me a little bit, but still she's good for what she's given. Yeah, part 1 does have a nice standard flow to it, and then we get a little bit of build up with Omega, and you can really see he's going to be entering this story soon, as we get like a little 5-second voice of Omega in part 1. With all these voices going on, with recordings saying Gallifrey is going to fall in the future, and the Time Lords eradicated, with these constant messages saying he returns. So yeah, it becomes this whole political conspiracy going on with Omega returning. If you love political stories, then Gallifrey is really going to be your cup of tea. Yeah, both sides of the stories, the one with Rex and Ace, and then Romana on Gallifrey with Narvin, is good. But the Gallifrey stuff isn't really the centre of attention just yet. It's really focusing on Ace and Rex, with them recovering the hand of Omega and seeing the formation of a black hole. And I do like how this audio is structured. It reminds me of Sirens of Time or the Seasons of Fear, as each part is in a different location. So it does make the story feel very refreshing at times, in different locations and areas, not just like on Gallifrey, for example. So I like that. It has some nice movement, it does, in different locations, so it feels quite refreshing. Yeah, I do get my first taste as Juliet Landau's go as Romana. And yeah, I really liked her go at Romana. This incarnation of Romana seems very calm in situations she is, especially in part 2, where one of the characters is Lucas, failed to do one of Romana's assignments, and Romana doesn't take it very seriously. So yeah, this incarnation of Romana is very just calm in places and not brash. Yeah, the side of the story with Romana and Narvin is pretty much getting built up here for part 2 and part 3, as it expands those two in the story with part 2 and part 3. Well, Narvin's especially in part 3 and Romana in part 2. But definitely the highlight and the strength of part 1 is the dialogue and the scenes from Rex with the black hole. Definitely a highlight for part 1, and the most interesting part of the story was with Rex and Ace for me. As the stuff on Gallifrey with Romana and Narvin was pretty much getting built up at this point. Oh, as well, I've got to say, it has a really good soundtrack, this release, and I'm glad they put it unscored. So yeah, my views on part 1, yeah, it's pretty good, it is. The story is very wide, with a lot going on. Some scenes in Gallifrey, some scenes with Rex and Ace tracking down the hand of Omega. And the build-up of Omega is pretty good with these constant messages going on. But yeah, part 1 was very good. It absolutely flies by part 1. It's very quick. So yeah, part 2 we have some new characters enter the frame of the story, such as Vale and Taurus. And now this is where the story turns like a political mystery going on, like which characters are against Romana and are with the return of Omega. Taurus is quite of a good, interesting character. You just find Narvin a little bit of a liability and not a strong person within his position of coordinator of the CIA. And yeah, Romana does reflect on what has been said from Taurus. Yeah, Lucas is another good character. He's got some fantastic characters. Some are forgettable, but some of the Time Lord characters like Rex, Taurus and Lucas are pretty enjoyable, and of course Narvin. Yeah, back to Lucas, he's a very good character. Seems very loyal to Romana's side. Yeah, as I said, part 2 focuses on this mystery against Romana, but the build-up with Omega is thin at this point. And I always say the pacing is a little weak, I'd say. This is where the pacing sort of takes a turn for the worse. It's not terrible, but you can see pacing issues are coming up. Yeah, with the main plots with the grand return of Omega, that was just, calming down. Not too much build-up for that. That stopped. I think the build-up should have just continued going up and up and up, and that would have been fantastic for the pacing. So that's a shame. I think the pacing could have been handled a little bit with care, in my opinion. But still got some great moments in part 2, as Romana's character goes for a lot in part 2, with a big plot on her life and a lot of people against her, as she doesn't really know who to trust. But yeah, she puts her trust with Narvin, as Romana and Narvin have been together for a very long time doing missions, as I think Narvin's been in every single Gallifrey release. So yeah, Romana puts faith and trust in Narvin to recover the hand of Omega and track down Ace. And he needs to do this under stealth and avoiding using Time Lord technology, as that would create problems. The first half is great, it flies by, but this is the main plot for me with Omega. That's where the pace is a bit all over the place and it feels like unremarkable a little bit. I wish that was built up a bit more with Omega. It's like I completely forgot about Omega completely, that the pacing was that off with him. And yeah, the build up was not very well done. It was for the other 2 strands of the stories, but not with Omega's build-up. Now to part 3, we go to 3000 BC, and now we focus on the character of Narvin. Nice to have some scenes on his own, so we can really have a taste of this brilliant character. And I really need to get the previous ones now, because I'm probably missing so much great back history into this brilliant character. I just want to know more about him. So that's obviously a good sign that I'm just a fan of this brilliant character Narvin, who also appeared in Dark Eyes 3 as well. Yeah, this part is interesting to say the least, but I gotta say it's one of the most non-engaging parts of the story. Not on par with part 1 and part 2. Part 3 is still good, but doesn't have as much engagement of what was going on in part 1 and part 2. Part 3 was rather of a slog, and it only took to track 6 where it really got up in the game with part 3. We do have some other supporting characters entering, but nothing memorable with Sol and Min, who are these cavemen people. These 2 played the characters well. I believe Min was voiced by Toby Longworth, if I remember correctly. But yeah, they were performing the characters well, but just forgettable characters. Yeah, as I said, part 3 was rather dull and slow in places. The only thing I liked about part 3 during the start and the middle was just hearing Narvin speak. And it took quite a while to get into the scenes with recovering the hand of Omega and Narvin finding Ace. Although, during track 6 it does have a very interesting plot reveal, and yeah, quite a nice one too. Yeah, part 3, as I said, it gets interesting with the last track, and yeah, the rest of it, track 1 to track 5 is a bit of a bore fest with part 3. Not terrible, just lacks any energy. I just wanted the story to hurry up, as we had some nice fast-paced movement in the first half, and now we're on a little bit more sloppy. Yeah, part 3 concludes very well with some scenes with Rex, who I absolutely love the character of Rex. He's one of my favourites in this one. And a very good twist with one of the characters which I thought was a bit shifty with the previous parts. I had my ears on that certain character, I won't say which character. But still, I was quite surprised what actually happened in Part 3 when it concluded. Overall, Part 3 was good, but pacing was a big weakness here, which was a shame. But Part 3 did build up Part 4 well, so I give it that much, but it could have been handled with a bit more care. Now to Part 4, and sadly, Omega doesn't do a lot before Part 4. We have a 5-second scene with him in Part 1, and then about a minute scene in Part 3 during around about the end. So yeah, I really wanted to get more Stephen Thorne Omega action in Part 4, as it would be a terrible shame if Omega was underused in this story, as he had some nice build up when Part 3 was concluding. I just wanted to hear just the brilliant Stephen Thorne playing Omega again. Yeah, Part 4 is led up very well with all the strands of the stories coming together within Part 4. And yeah, it reminds me of like how the Three Doctors works, and yeah, the Sirens of Time as well. It's got a very similar structure to it. As we have Ace and Narvin together, going to Omega, and then Romana and Lucas. Although Part 4 does do something quite controversial, and yeah, it is a negative, I have to admit, and it's quite a bad one. And yet it's about Omega. He has some nice scenes in Part 4, but not in the way you would expect it to be. And yet, if listeners have listened to this release, then you will definitely know what I'm talking about and will agree. It's a very odd way to showcase Omega and wasn't used in his best way possible. Yeah, I didn't really get that, why they chose to go in that direction of the story with Omega, because it was not the best way to showcase this brilliant villain. I don't know, I'm not really a fan of what they did with Omega during the direction of the story. I just found it a little bit, odd. However, Part 4 did have some great direction, music score. Omega was brilliant in scenes, but still, what was really going on with him is quite controversial, and I don't really care for it whatsoever, and was not the best way to showcase this villain. And the second half is weaker than the first half, in my opinion. Part 4 does do a nice touch to the Three Doctors, got some fantastic epic scenes in places. Still could have been handled better, but Part 4 is better than Part 3, so that's good enough. So yeah, Part 4 turned out pretty good, but I can see improvements in places where I would change stuff to make it look better. And yeah, if some things were changed around, then Part 4 would have been a lot better than good. Now to characters and performances, we have Romana, Juliet Landau. I do really like this Romana, and I do want to hear a lot more from her, so nice performances by Juliet Landau. Next up is Ace, Sophie Aldred, and yeah, quite good, not bad what she's given. Still would have preferred if they did a different characterization with Ace, make her a little bit more mature and independent rather than this immature, rather annoying side of Ace. Next up is Narvin, which is played by Sean Carlson, a fantastic and interesting character. He's a massive part of the Gallifrey series, and also appeared in Dark Eyes 3. I want to get more from him. I want to know a lot more from this fantastic character. So that's obviously a good sign. I like this character a lot. Next up we have the big guy of the story, Omega, played by Stephen Thorne. Not in the way I wanted him to go and used in Part 4. It's an odd choice, and I'm not entirely sure why the writers went for this choice, as it's not the best way to show off Omega. Next character, another one I quite like, which is Lucas, played by Scott Arthur. Yeah, I like the character, seems very loyal to Romana, and played his part during Part 2 and some nice stuff in Part 4 as well. And plus his performances were strong. Next one is probably one of my favourite characters of this release, which is Rex, which is played by Giles Brand Ref. A wonderful character, like what he was doing in Part 1 and especially in Part 3. Quite interesting character, don't get really a lot with his background and really anything about his character. He's just like a Time Lord and that. We have like a picture of him during like end of Part 1 or somewhere in the first half. Next one is Taurus, played by Daniel Broccobank. An interesting character Taurus is, and played some very nice parts of the story. Did some quite good stuff in Part 2 and Part 4. Next is Vale, played by Lara Doddington. Not a huge character this one, only played for one purpose, and her purpose was predictable. but yeah, you still writing the story, nothing memorable. And these other ones are really background characters with Sol and Ming, Toby Longworth and Rachel Atkins. Just background characters in part 3. And there's another character whose title's here, and I think he's on the back, which is Mercus by Andrew Piper, and I can't remember anything from him. Yeah, I apologise about that, I cannot remember anything about his character. So what is my final verdict on Gallifrey Intervention Earth? Yeah, it's a good release from the range. It's a brilliant story and I very much recommend this one. It'd be a great start for you to get into the Gallifrey range. And if you like this release, then it's obviously a good sign for you to get into the actual Gallifrey series, starting with Series 1. As you don't need any other stories to get into this one. No background or history in the Gallifrey series. You could just pick this up with no worry whatsoever. It's still got its negatives with it, as I've discussed in the review, which is unfortunate. And the real problem with this release is pacing. It's a little bit all over the place a little bit. It could have been handled with a little bit more care. However, the story did keep my interest, and when I did listen to it with full engagement, I did like it, even though if the pacing was a little bit dim in places. Still enjoyed it what we got here. And I give this story a 7.5 out of 10 for Gallifrey Intervention Earth. A very good story. And I'm going to look forward to the other Gallifrey releases. And as well the other one coming up in May 2016. And yeah, from the cliffhanger of this release, it was intriguing, more Gallifrey releases. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the penultimate video of Spin-Off Week. Have a good one.